Liga MX as the shoot your shot league.
You do expect higher performances and better things from Club America, but it's the inconsistencies.
Isn't this inconsistent though?
I will maintain that the U.S. men's national team came out to the knockout round despite terrible coaching.
Like they have a student discount maybe to go to Puebla games? Like they got it, right?
No.
To take that next step, I think it's still undisputed that you have to go to Europe.
He's going to be on the ground for the majority of the time. No, look back at highlights.
That's the Christian Pulisic treatment, though.
Same.
We're going to have to stop this. We're going to start arguing on this podcast, aren't we?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Real Futbol Show. As always, I'm Lizzy, U.S. editor over at 90min.com, covering North American football. With me, my co-host, Geno Canelo. How are you?
I am good, Lizzy. I am good. Another week of MLS in the books. Just a lot going on. Liga MX, CONCACAF Champions League. So much has happened since the last time we talked. It's definitely going to be a good podcast today to talk about a lot of different things that we haven't talked about in a while.
Let's get into it. To start, There's a lot of international news, especially related to the U.S. men's national team. And to kick off, we'll go over the results from the U.S. soccer investigation into Greg Berhalter and the incident that occurred almost 30 years ago and the involvement of Claudio and Danielle Reyna, Gio Reyna's parents, and their involvement into the entire situation. So U.S. Soccer commissioned this independent investigation into the incident where Greg Berhalter and his now wife, Rosalind Berhalter, were involved in a domestic abuse situation. He, the former head coach, admitted to everything that happened. He willingly participated in the investigation where he mentioned what had happened, that they had been drinking, and he got into a physical altercation with his then girlfriend, now wife. And the investigation collaborated with other people that were witnesses at the event 30 some years ago. Everything was proven to be true, but the law firm that conducted the investigation basically proved that he's still eligible to be part of the organization, that as of now, he obviously didn't break any laws, which U.S. Soccer then came out to say that he's still a candidate for the U.S. coaching position. Now, this wasn't any sort of news because Greg Berhalter came before the investigation to admit on his social media channels, to apologize to his wife, to apologize to basically the fan base, USMNT organization as a whole. So we knew that to be true. But what was interesting is the Reyna involvement in this whole situation. And we know that there was some sort of blackmail, but it really extended to 2016, when Gio Reyna began in the youth levels of the United States soccer organization. And it just stems from so many instances. There was examples of emails and conversations that Claudio Reyna had about discriminating against referees, texting Ernie Stewart, the then sporting director, and the now famous line by Danielle Reyna saying, "I can make one call and you would have information that you don't know." More threatening, but I don't remember it word for word. Basically your thoughts on the whole situation. Yes, I unfortunately cannot get to that level of threatening as I am not capable of it. However, I will leave you all to read the entire report. It is lengthy, but it is important to understand what's going on. That was just a brief little summary. But Geno, your thoughts?
The Reynas really describe American parents in the youth sports world, right? I mean, they literally do everything that parents in America do with their kids in sports. There's always, the big thing, in America with sports, like these overzealous parents who are like dying to get their kid playing time or dying to get their kid to do this or that, or just upset because they think their kid's the best thing that's ever happened to the world. And, I think in this situation, obviously Gio Reyna is very talented, but I mean, the Reynas really come out much worse in this situation than I think anybody else. I mean, obviously, again, that doesn't diminish the fact that Greg Berhalter did have some physical altercation with his wife at some point in their relationship, which again, not good, and don't condone that in any sense. But as the report says, they didn't find anything that he did was illegal. Again, I don't know. Who knows? There's only really three people that actually really do know what happened that night. Really, two people, because it was Greg and his wife. So they're the only two people that know actually what did happen that night. And yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like the Reynas, specifically Danielle Reyna. It's Danielle Reyna.
Danielle,
yeah, Danielle Reyna. Specifically her, like, she comes off much worse in this situation, especially since I think the report said that she had said that Greg was like beating the crap out of his wife. And, there was, according to the report, there was no sign or no belief of any, or no backing that there could have been any major injury or any injury to Rosalind Berhalter. So again, the Reynas come off much, much worse in this situation than I think anybody else does, purely because they literally just were blackmailing the United States men's national team because their kid wasn't getting playing time. Like, that's like the most ridiculous thing in the world.
yeah, and I think the only conflicting aspect of the report for me was, obviously there's no arguments of everything that came out. Very concerning that the Reynas would expose themselves in that sense, that they would be capable of doing such crazy. But really what was concerning to me was the report stated that Gio Reyna was coming off of an injury at the World Cup and during those training sessions. However, information came out after the World Cup and prior to this investigation that he was not giving it his all during these training sessions, and that other teammates felt disrespected by his mannerisms in that sense. Now, obviously the question is, was he injured, or was he coming off of an injury, or was he not giving it his all? Because if he was injured, then you don't expect a player to give it his all because he doesn't want to be injured. But then why would you get mad at him for not giving his all? So that was the only thing left up in the air for me, which is, I guess, the aspect that I'd like to focus on the most is the sport, but it tends not to go into further detail and it leaves it a little bit unanswered. However, this situation has gone way beyond what actually happened at the World Cup, but the back of it all, the behind the scenes, and it was absolutely insane to me. It was crazy, and I know Claudio Reyna is still heavily involved with MLS, so that's going to be an interesting scenario to navigate through. I'm not sure what steps Austin FC will now take. I know he took himself out of the role that he was at with Austin FC, but he's still somewhat attached to the team, so that will be very interesting. I personally don't think they can walk away from this unscathed and without consequences. I would be surprised too if those consequences don't unjustly reach Gio Reyna. I don't know how his international future will be after this. I think it's uncomfortable for him and for teammates, to say the least. And we don't necessarily know to what extent Gio Reyna was involved in. I don't know what he knew his parents were doing or not doing. So I don't judge the kid. At the end of the day, he is a kid, and we have to hold these adults responsible for their actions. I'm sure he had somewhat of an ego problem, as any young 19 or 20-year-old would, but I don't think he was necessarily part, or it doesn't seem like he was necessarily part of the blackmailing. So just interesting to see how his international future will go on from here.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing, right? Because Gio, as I said, is super, super talented, but he kind of gets the stray bullet in this situation, being, just the kid who was in the middle, like the kid of the parents who are being too much on the side of the soccer field, and it's a shame because there's no way he's going to come out of this with people feeling comfortable about him on the team or in the international. I mean, I don't know. We don't know what happened. We only know this as far as the U.S. men's national team serves, right? I mean, we don't know what's happening at Borussia Dortmund or, he obviously it's not blackmail that they have on anybody there, but who knows what the parents are saying to people over there and the connections that they have over there. And I think it's an unfortunate situation because he's a 19-year-old kid who just wants to go out and play soccer and be the best he can be, I think. And his parents are now making this a much bigger deal than it has to be. And now I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people or a lot of coaches to trust him or count on him or really just include him in a team without expecting drama, no matter who the coach is at the U.S. men's national team level. So it's really unfortunate because he is up there with the most talented players we've ever seen in an American jersey, but you expected there to be, along with the Reynas, do you expect there to be some sort of backlash and setback for Gio Reyna at the international level after all this?
Now, the bigger question is, or in two parts, can and should Greg Berhalter come back and lead the United States men's national team after this?
I mean, my personal opinion has always been that Greg Berhalter should not continue as head coach of the U.S. men's national team, but that has nothing to do with this situation. That has to do with, in my personal opinion, on his on-field, expertise, I guess you could say. I just don't believe he's the right guy to lead this team into the next World Cup and into the prime years of this quote unquote golden generation that we have here. So I don't think he should continue anyway. In terms of, does this report, if you did believe Greg Berhalter should continue as the coach, does this report affect that? I would probably, I don't know, it's hard, right? Because he did basically explain or speak out on situations that the team had agreed would stay internal. So how could players trust him or his staff again after that situation? But at the same time, if you're looking at purely the report, I don't think that there's anything in the report that would say, Greg Berhalter should be completely taken out of this job because of this report. So I think there's different ways you can look at it. I mean, again, my personal opinion is he should not continue anyway, and I'm not sure that players can trust him after everything that's happened, but I don't think the report makes it any different based on whatever your opinion was.
I agree. I've always been a fan of saying that after each World Cup cycle, the head coach in charge should walk away and make way for a new system to be put in place, no matter who you are. So agree there. Yep. About trust, I think at this point, everything that surrounds Berhalter detracts from the situation at hand, which is preparing these players for the next World Cup. So thank you so much for your service. As you said, this report doesn't change. The U.S. was in their right to say he should remain a candidate, not that he should remain as the head coach. As we know, his contract expired in December. So yes, he should, because legally he can still be a candidate. Doesn't necessarily mean he should be the next head coach, because thank you for your service, but goodbye. Just beyond the report. And thanks. Yes. And within U.S. men's national team news, as it hasn't been chaotic enough, dual nat player Alejandro Sendejas has officially committed to the American team. He announced on his social media that he thanks both countries for their contributions into the person that he is today, but his heart lies with the American team. And I would be the first one to make jokes and laugh and everything, but with dual nationality players in particular, I feel for their decision. I think it's an important one and it's an emotional one, and there's no necessarily right side. I will say it's somewhat of a loss to Mexico. We do have other players, but he is a great option. However, I'm sure that decision was not easy. And so I commend him for the bravery, the decision-making process, and everything to that extent. The only thing that I will laugh at, I just have one thing. He went yesterday, he was Alejandro. Today, I've committed with the U.S. men's national team, and today I am Alex. Now, all of a sudden, he's Alex. So that I will make fun of because it's just like, oh, I'm with the U.S. men's national team. Now I'm Alex Sendejas instead of Alejandro. I'm leaving the Jandro behind, and I'm just Alex. That was very funny to me.
Beautiful name.
Does not reflect on the decision, just a very funny change that came with it.
It's a beautiful, beautiful name, and I just have something to say. All right, I think we might get copyrighted for that, but that's okay because it was definitely worth it. Because the U.S. men's national team now has another phenomenal player, and Lizzy's Mexico has now lost another phenomenal player. And Lizzy tried to get us in the
name the
chat.
first one.
No, you tried to get us in the Slack chat, and I wasn't having any of that. And I said, what?
Who have we lost that has been phenomenal?
It's just there's just so many
Ricardo Pepi.
There's so many players who want to come play for the United States that it's obvious why. I mean, it's very obvious why. It is. Why would you want to play for Mexico?
I mean, to start off, at least we have a head coach and sporting director.
That's okay. We don't need one of those until like 2 years from now. We don't need one of those. You said, I remember you said it's going to be hard to get dual national players without a head coach and a sporting director.
I did. I will say with Alejandro Sendejas, he technically was always part. Alex, I'm sorry. That's just not going to be easy for me to say. He was always part of the U.S. men's national team. It was going to be a FIFA one-time switch was going to be needed, like the one that David Ochoa and Julian Araujo did. Julian Araujo, Barcelona player, did. So it was part of.
I don't know what you want me to do.
Yeah, but
Geno Dest, U.S. national team player, was also a Barcelona player.
Yeah, but he's not anymore. So I don't know why that was relevant to bring up. He made no impact on that team. Zero impact. They're trying to sell him off because of his lack of talent. But thanks so much for bringing that up and giving me that.
It's Ronald Koeman's fault. It's not Serginho Dest's fault. He wanted to succeed. Ronald Koeman didn't give him the opportunity.
Oh, okay. Just gonna glance over that and take it as what it was, a joke. The U.S. men's national team got Alejandro Sendejas, Alex Sendejas. So happy for him that he's finally decided that's off the table now, and everybody can focus on what's at hand. The Nations League match is coming up in March. Also, because all of this news was not enough, the U.S. men's national team and Mexico announced an annual friendly sponsored by Allstate that will be held this year in State Farm Stadium in Phoenix. So that is something to look forward to. That will be very interesting. Another friendly that really doesn't mean anything, but a friendly nonetheless.
Every day if you guys beat us, it'll mean the world. If we beat you, it'll mean nothing. That's what it always is.
I will say, the thing is with these friendlies, even if we win, it means nothing. We'll laugh for 5 minutes, but it doesn't mean anything. We don't bring it. Just no. It's a friendly. They're fun.
I don't know.
They're so fun.
Here over in the United States, we just want to win every single time we can. I guess Mexico doesn't have that winning mentality.
And why don't you?
We basically do now.
Do you?
We never lose, ever.
Oh, okay. You never lose. Okay, so where was that mentality in 2018?
In 2018,
Out the window?
I didn't say 2018. I said now. Now we don't ever. 2018.
Okay, so starting tomorrow then.
That didn't happen. No, starting
Didn't
from
happen.
the day we started beating Mexico consistently, now we don't lose anymore.
You've lost since. You didn't win the World Cup. You've lost
Yeah, we
various
lost one
times.
game. We lost one game.
Various
Who
times.
cares?
Various times. Anyway, we have so much international action to look forward to later in March. Nations League, and obviously we know this summer brings so many CONCACAF tournaments. We have Leagues Cup also between the two leagues. Gold Cup coming up. This week we have CONCACAF Champions League. So let's get into that. Today, Austin hosts Violet, which has been chaotic in and of itself, even after losing an embarrassing 3-0 loss against a Haitian team, Violet, in the Dominican Republic. Now there are reports that their team will not be intact because they were not granted enough travel visas. So they've outsourced part of their roster to players here. It'll be interesting to see their starting 11 tonight. However, I think if Austin FC wins by default, it is not really merit in any way, shape, or form, because when it was fair on a neutral ground, they lost. So if Austin FC ends up advancing rounds, it will be such a shame that Haiti's Violet will not be taken into consideration because of paperwork beyond their control and off the field.
Yeah, definitely a weird situation. I mean, I don't know why, that's the weird problem with all of these games, right? Is just, with some of these countries, players coming over for some reason, that paperwork, again, like you said, it's out of their control. There's nothing they can do about it. I mean, it's really unfortunate that they have to go through that. And, just to play a soccer game over here in Austin. So, like you said, I would agree. I don't think that it really merits a win if Austin were to win today. Although, 3 goals down is still a long way to come down from. So, you got it. That's a hard feat to overcome against any opponent, whether they're fully fit or whatnot. So, I don't think Austin will end up doing it anyway. I think what's probably going to happen, I mean, it's going to be a very one-sided game overall.
Yeah.
If we're being completely honest. I mean, it's going to be Austin just putting pressure on, on Violet. Was it Violet or Violetta?
I just call it Violet because
Yeah, Violet. Okay, that's where we're going. We're
but
going
I
Violet.
may be right. It's the same way, but it's the same way I pronounce Eredivisie. Like, I don't actually know if that's correct. I just say it with a little bit of confidence.
Okay, yeah. So Violet is, they're going to park the bus. They're going to literally put 10 players on the 18-yard box. It's going to be like rugby out there. That's probably what it's going to look like. It's just going to be a constant wave of attack from Austin, most likely, with your occasional counterattack here and there. But, it's still going to be a tough feat for Austin to overcome either way. But definitely an unfortunate situation that they can't have their whole team here after going up 3-0 anyway. So,
yeah, I think the most exciting game this week in particular is Orlando versus Tigres. Tigres, who we know have been a favorite of the tournament, but now are fighting for their ticket. Orlando held the Liga MX team to a 0-0 draw at El Volcán, which is not an easy stadium to visit. And listen, had it not been for Pedro Alese, it really would have been 3-0, and Tigres would have had the win basically secured at this point. But a huge, huge win for Orlando in holding them to that draw. Now it'll be interesting in Orlando to see how they react, or how Tigres react without Guignac, who we know will not be traveling due to personal reasons. He's not vaccinated and therefore will not travel to the United States, as he hasn't done in the past. We know, again, he was invited to MLS versus Liga MX All-Star last summer, and he also didn't attend for the same reasons. So Tigres will be without their quote-unquote best player. However, they have been playing the team as a whole has been playing better without him. He was recently injured in Liga MX, so there was a spell of 1 or 2 games where he didn't feature, and the team just looked so much better, so much more youthful, quick, on their feet. Now, does Piojo deserved credit for saying that he couldn't win with an old roster, but then he got fired. So I think he deserves credit for that. For that quote, even though it got him fired. But he's with Tijuana now, so didn't suffer for too long. He has another team. He's still a coach. Liga MX, it's fine. But yeah, so that's the game I'm most looking forward to this week.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be a good one. This one a little bit different, obviously. I mean, this is obviously something that is under Gignac's control a little bit in terms of what he can and
very
cannot do.
different, yes.
But again, you know, you don't want to disrespect anybody's beliefs or whatever, but a little bit different from the situation that Violet is dealing with. But yeah, I mean, this Tigres team has not really been playing too well recently. I mean, they've had chances, haven't been able to really put the ball in the back of the net. They only have 2 goals in their last 4 games. So,
Yeah.
you know, they haven't, and it was, you know, they haven't scored more than 2 goals in any game. Like, it's not like they've had an offensive explosion in any game. You know, it's been a rough go of things for a little bit now, which is a little bit worrying because this was a Tigres team at the beginning of the season that we said, wow, they're off to a really hot start. They're doing really well. Seems like they've fallen off a little bit now midway through their Liga, through the Clausura. And now they have to go to Orlando. And listen, I mean, there's no saying that they can't go out there and beat Orlando. That's, you know, I think my personal opinion in the end is that they probably will win that one, whether it be an extra time or on PKs. I think it will be won by Tigres because I just don't know. I haven't been convinced by Orlando yet this season.
Yeah, neither
But
have I.
yeah, but it's definitely harder without Gignac on the pitch for them, and definitely harder that they didn't get a win at home and then now they have to travel on the road. So it's going to be an interesting one overall. But like you said, definitely the best game on the slate this week. Really,
Yeah.
of all the remaining, we talked about it last week. There were no wins through 3, no goals through 3 Liga, through 3 MLS team games. If we're talking MLS, the other 2 teams that are in CONCACAF Champions League then went on to score 5 and 3 goals in their respective games and win both of them. So, you know, putting a little bit of a stamp on things towards the end of the week, but a lot, you know, Philadelphia Union has a lot to play for still. You know, Orlando City's still in it. Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting week. I think the Austin game is just a whole different beast, but the Philly game and the Orlando game, we'll see what happens. We'll see if they use their full squad, because again, this was another thing we talked about. Whereas Vancouver and LAFC did use squads that were more towards their full squad, Philly did not. In their original game, we'll see if they go back and decide to go with the full squad in this one. So a lot of CONCACAF Champions League on this week again, and it's going to be a lot of fun because there's still a lot to be determined in a few of these games.
Yeah, and it was interesting you mentioned LAFC and their roster. They made several changes last Saturday for Major League Soccer. They used several substitutes, which leaves the message that they're more interested in the CONCACAF Champions League than they are MLS, which again would make sense. They're coming off their win last season. They have that trophy. They have a supporter shield. They're going for an international tournament, and knowing what it meant to the Seattle Sounders to become one of the first MLS teams to win that trophy over Liga MX, who has held the title for so long, I understand Steve Cherundolo making those decisions. It was just so interesting to see such a contrast so early on. And it's exciting. I mean, LAFC still went on Saturday against the New England Revolution with their substitutes. So they're doing well on either end. It will be interesting later this week to see if they continue to use their strong starting 11 in CONCACAF Champions League now that they've basically secured a foundation for the victory and to advance. But they're taking it seriously, and it's very exciting. They're taking MLS seriously to an extent, but they're still winning, so that's great. They're a game down, which is why they're not current leaders of the Western Conference, and it's St. Louis, which is a conversation on its own.
Yes. The best team in the league, St. Louis.
The best team in the league, who everyone expected and knew would be the best team in the league.
Through 3 games. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy to see what St. Louis is doing over there. I don't physically understand. It's not going to last that. I can't imagine it. I say this every week, but I can't imagine it lasts much longer because eventually LAFC is going to pass them. But in terms of LAFC, them resting players and whatnot, as you said last week, and you were right, it's early in the season. There's so much time left in the MLS. If they want to rest players now, like these games in the grand scheme of things probably won't matter too much because they know their team is good enough, whether they're the 3 seed, the 2 seed, the 1 seed, to make it through the playoffs, no matter where they play. Their team is phenomenal. So it's, they're not worried about that. They're worried about getting these wins in the CONCACAF Champions League. And I think maybe a little bit they saw Philly change their team a little bit, and Austin changed their team and Orlando changed their team a little bit. And they said, you know what, we're not going to make that same mistake and, make it through. So definitely an interesting group of games this weekend. Liz, you still there? You froze there for a second on me.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so interested by LAFC's roster, but no, I think Steve Girondolo is a very intelligent coach on and off the field. He understands the game, but also understands the bigger picture, which is why we've seen them be so successful as an expansion team. They won Supporters Shield. They won the MLS Cup. They're going after an international trophy, which is great, and they're still somewhat top of the league. However, St. Louis, current winners, didn't expect that. As you said, no. I think LAFC will surpass them at a certain point. I do see that coming. But I do think they'll stay within playoff range. I think they will too. This team has this momentum.
It's becoming more and more likely that they stay within playoff range, I think, as the season. Obviously injuries can affect things, of course.
Of course.
But it does seem like they're built to stay and built to last here with St. Louis in the MLS in the Western Conference. So, which is crazy because the Western Conference is better than the Eastern Conference. So for them to be top of the Western Conference, I think is very impressive. They're the first team to have 3 come from behind victories in the first 3 matches of a season ever in league history for any team ever. And then they're the first expansion side, I think, to start the season, or the second expansion side to start the season with 3 wins, and the first expansion side to start the season with to start their inaugural season with 2 wins on the road out of 3 games. So
breaking records all around.
This hasn't been easy. It's not like it's been easy. Right. So, they've gone to Portland and gone to Austin. So those are 2 not easy places to play. So the fact that they're doing this is very impressive.
It is. And their head coach, to a certain extent, said, I don't think this is luck because I don't think it's going to run out. I don't necessarily think it's luck. I think it's momentum, which they control and can live out as long as they can. I think it's a good team. I don't think it's an MLS Cup contender, but I may be proven wrong, which would be great to see. I think another Cinderella Leicester City moment, but in American soccer is lovely. We love that. So that would be absolutely wonderful, but much more league action. Take us away, Geno.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about. So many things happened this weekend. A lot. Not just St. Louis made history. We had Atlanta making some history as well. Specifically Caleb Wiley. They took on Charlotte in what, I think MLS is calling a rivalry match. I don't know if it's gotten to that level yet. But I think that's the rivalry that MLS is pushing there. But Atlanta really, Charlotte did not look good. Charlotte did not look good once again, which we'll talk about in a second. But Atlanta, like I said, made history. They scored 2 goals in the first 12 minutes, which is the fastest they've ever scored two goals in any league match in their history, while Caleb Wiley became the 4th youngest player ever in MLS history to have 3 goal contributions in the same half. And that list consists of 3 players, including Caleb Wiley, 2 spots which were taken up by Alphonso Davies, which we know is,
Great player.
we know where he is now. So definitely a really good showing from Atlanta United. They took advantage of a lot of the Charlotte mistakes. I mean, Caleb Wiley looks awesome. Luis,
Yeah.
and I think it's Araujo. Is that how
I
you?
think it's
Because I know it's
Araujo.
Araujo. Okay, Luis Araujo. He gets on the score sheet as well, which is important for them because he was a big signing for them. So he gets on the score sheet, but Atlanta actually look like they're starting to click a little bit and having 18-year-old Caleb Wiley doing things like he was doing on Saturday. It's a really good sign for them.
Yeah, I think they're great. Gonzalo Pineda, I think, is a great head coach. I think last season he had a lot of distractions and injuries, both on and off the field, that affected what was going on. Miles Robinson is back. He's fully fit. And Joseph Martinez is out. We know he's with Inter Miami now, but there was a lot of complications last season that brought distraction, locker room fights, I guess, just a lot of drama that may have impacted how players perform on the field. So I think now they're getting going. It wasn't that they didn't have the best start to the season. Obviously, we know their season opener, they won, but San Jose Earthquakes clearly outperformed them throughout the majority of the game. And had it not been for Thiago Almada, they wouldn't have survived. So very interesting to see them now gaining confidence, rhythm, and communicating on the field. They're a great team. They're well coached. The organization is really strong. I don't see why they can't climb the Eastern Conference table, especially given I don't want to say lack of competition, but the level of where the East is now in comparison to the West. So that should be interesting. Caleb Wiley's great. I think deserves the credit, but can it last is what I want to see personally.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Can it last? But it's good to see that players not named Thiago Almada are scoring goals. That's important because I think there was a little bit of a worry where the goal is going to come from other than Thiago Almada. So, that not being, them getting goals from elsewhere is huge for them. So that's great. And like you said, like, I think Atlanta can stay near the top of I think they could do a good job of staying near the top of the East, because as we've mentioned multiple times, the East is not that strong. I think they're currently tied for first as of right now, after grabbing 2 straight wins. So, or 2 wins in their first 3. So it's definitely going to be interesting watching them as time goes on over these next few weeks to see if they can hold that and then see where they go from there. But on the other hand, Charlotte is in the opposite direction. They're currently at the bottom of they're currently at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. They have 0 points. And for the second straight week, their mistakes have seriously cost them. So it asks the questions like, what's wrong over there? What do you see, Lizzy, that's like not going well over there? Because something is very, very wrong with Charlotte, because they don't even they look like they're struggling.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of issues going on. Not even on the field. I think their off season obviously was very difficult, and I say this with a lot of respect to also the emotional component that came with losing Anton Walks. That is a huge aspect in and of itself. So I say everything barring what happened. Again, our respects, and not including the emotional toll that may have taken on the team. But I think the team didn't really strengthen their roster to an extent during the offseason. They made several trades out and switched up things, but didn't necessarily substitute the necessary players. Enzo Copetti, I think, is good, but he's not a standalone talent that can kind of save a team from drowning by himself. He's just not that kind of figure. And the organization as a whole, I think there's holes where there shouldn't be at this point. Now, the saving grace last season was the fact that it was their inaugural season and they were fixing a couple things here and there, and they hadn't experienced Major League Soccer before, so they didn't know what a competition would necessarily be like. But this is their second year now, so they should be a lot better. They should get the hang of things, and they're simply not. I know it's still very early, but I think the lack of communication, worrying front office, and just lack of real talent and the mistakes that we've seen on the field, I don't think it's going to improve necessarily.
Yeah, no, I think you're right with the Enzo Capetti, and they were saying this on the broadcast. They made a good point on the broadcast this past weekend where bringing in Enzo Capetti then moves Swiderski to a spot where I'm not sure he's as comfortable or fits well. Like, I think he was doing very well in that number 9 role and scoring the goals, and now he's kind of been shifted to the wing a little bit, and kind of been put in a spot that I'm not sure fits his skills level. So, it seems like Charlotte, while not strengthening their roster, also, like, when they did strengthen it, didn't strengthen it with the right pieces. So that's an issue. I mean, again, you have to bring in the right pieces to succeed. And they lost, obviously. Again, I think you're right. I think you're probably right with, we don't know how much that the loss of Anton Walkes is weighing on them. Again, this was kind of the Anton Walkes, remembrance game, because he also played for Atlanta United. So definitely like an emotional first few weeks, which definitely can play a toll, have a toll on a team. So take its toll on a team. So the problem more is that it's not like it seems like a lot of things are going wrong are like stupid things. It's like they're passing the ball to spot. They're just being loose with the ball. It's not like they're not fluid as a team, or they're not finding in the attacking third. Like, they're just handing possession over to the other team, at least in the last few weeks. So that's a serious issue that needs to be fixed. And, I mean, it seems easy, but it's probably a lot harder than it seems. So definitely a problem over there. And then with that being said, the next question I have, I mean, there's only 2 teams that have 0 points in the entire league, I believe. It's Charlotte and it's Montreal, who lost again this past weekend. Charlotte, we've talked about them. They can't score goals. They give up goals. They've only scored 1 goal all season. They've given up 7 goals all season. Meanwhile, Montreal has yet to score a goal at all this season and has given up 5 goals. A little bit of different opponents that they've faced. Charlotte's faced New England. They've faced St. Louis. They've faced Atlanta. Meanwhile, Montreal has taken on Inter Miami, Austin, and Nashville. So my question to you, Lizzy, is, as we're looking at Charlotte, who is the worst? Who's the worst of the when it comes to these teams who are winless? Who is worse, Montreal or Charlotte?
I will say Charlotte, just because Montreal had a great season last year, but they suffered a lot of changes during the offseason. We saw a huge coaching change, several players traded out, and it seems that this year is more restructuring than anything, and that comes with difficult times, like losing or not getting a point in 3 games. But Charlotte, on the other end, had to go the other way around. I think their inaugural season was forgiven, even like if it was rocky, they saw coaching changes. It came with like the growing pains of a new team, but the trajectory goes up where it's not. And so it's very weird on that end. We know by other expansion teams, Austin, for example, had a difficult first season and then adjusted properly with Josh Wolf at hand and had a phenomenal second season. So I think Charlotte should have learned from their first, saw mistakes, fixed things that they should have, and they haven't, or they chose not to. And that needs to be taken more into consideration than the changes that Montreal is going through. Now, they're both terrible to watch. Like, they're not fun teams to watch at the moment. So I say all of that,
is a shame,
knowing that both are terrible.
Yeah, I really liked Montreal last season, and I was kind of hoping Wilfred Nancy would stick around there because I really like the job he did there. But at the same time, they've lost a few key players in Georgi Mihalovic and Ishmael Kone. So there's definitely been a kind of transition period here where they've got some growing pains, and it's not been pretty from a Montreal aspect. Whereas, as we've said with Charlotte, it's definitely been more, it's definitely been more of the, like, they didn't address the needs. They knew what they needed, and they didn't address the needs. And granted, that's easier said than done because the transfer market is just weird. But they didn't address the needs.
You have the opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And they didn't address the needs that they needed to address, and it's looked really bad. Like, I haven't seen too much of Montreal. I've seen Charlotte a couple times now, and they just look like they're so discombobulated, and they're not playing as one team, and that's like a serious issue. So,
before we wrap up with MLS, I have one question for you that you're going to be very grateful for.
Yes.
As you've made a point, you've seen so much of the Vancouver Whitecaps. Can you inform us on what your thoughts are of the Vancouver Whitecaps?
I have seen a lot of Vancouver Whitecaps. I think I've seen all 3 of their last games. Like, I've watched so much Vancouver Whitecaps over the past week. I think I watched 3 games of Vancouver Whitecaps in the past week. So I've seen a lot of them. So I know exactly I know what they're like. I do. My opinion is that I think they have really good pieces. I think they have really good pieces. I do like Brian White. I like Pedro Vite. I like Raposo on that left side. I'm just not sure that the system they play fits the players that they have. And I love Ryan Gauld. Ryan Gauld, great player, phenomenal passer of the ball. I mean, we saw it on Wednesday when he played in the CONCACAF Champions League, 2 sick passes that led to goals.
Yeah.
Like, they have a good team, I think. Very well-structured team. But I feel like, for example, Raposo on the left side, I feel like in the game on Wednesday in CONCACAF Nations League, he was getting forward. And he's quick, and he's got a lot of pace. He's able to get back. He's got a good crossing ability. They utilized him very well in the attack. But when I watched the game on Saturday, MLS-wise, it felt like he was just sitting back. And they played FC Dallas, which, again, FC Dallas did not look good in this game. Like, they should have been able to dominate FC Dallas, and they didn't. And I think a major part of the problem, which is a very big problem for them because they brought him in this season, I'm not sure Cordova is the right player for this team, because when he came off midweek in the CONCACAF Champions League, everything changed, and they became so much better and so much more dynamic. So I question, and the other thing is, he doesn't seem to put in a ton of effort. Like, it seems like his work rate in attack is not very high, which is a problem. So that's my Vancouver Whitecaps analysis after 3 games in a row watching them. And I'm sure I'll watch a bunch more of them because they're the standalone game at 10:30 9 times out of 10. So it's whatever.
I love that for you. I love that we have a Vancouver Whitecaps fan now on the podcast.
Yeah, send me a jersey, Vancouver. Like, I'm a big Vancouver fan now. I
willing or not willing, we have a Vancouver Whitecaps fan now.
Yes, I'm a Vancouver Whitecaps fan. I like what they do. They need to fill BC Place a little bit more because that place is empty. I mean, granted, it's a massive place, so it's hard to fill in to begin with. But go Vancouver.
Difficult times, like random times during the week, that makes it difficult sometimes for fans to go out of. So difficult to fill. But transitioning over to Liga MX, we had a bunch of games this week, a lot of victories. Mainly, Club America won 2-0 over Tigres, which was a huge win given the start of both these teams with the Clausura. Club America obviously struggled quite a bit, whereas Tigres was thriving in the beginning. And to see that 2-0 victory was really a very important step forward for Fernando Ortiz's side to climb up the table and also establish what they want, which is a top 4 place before the playoffs. So that was a huge victory. I personally enjoyed that one, especially. Oh, wait.
Shocker.
Huge news that came out because you blamed me for blaming the referees. You said I can't blame the referees last game.
I don't know. I'm smelling corruption, and I don't even know what you're saying.
Listen. So they reviewed everything that happened during that game, and they the whatever committee disagreed with what happened. And those 2 referees that were in charge of the Club America game were not assigned games this weekend because they were incorrect. That shouldn't have been the call. It was very clear that Luis Chavez touched that ball and that it wasn't offside. So I just feel like I and my thoughts have been vindicated. The fact that I didn't actually blame the referees for that Pachuca loss. So I just wanted to make that a huge focal point. I'm vindicated. Club America is fine. Probably still would have lost against Pachuca, but not by 3 goals. So it's fine. And we came back and we won 2-0 against Tigres.
Yes. What I will say is even if those 2 goals stood, it would have been 3-3. So you would have only tied. So it's really only 1 point. So
thanks.
Good for you guys.
1 point that I'm sure you guys could use very much.
We don't need points right now. We're right where we want to be. We got you guys right where we want you. We're sitting pretty. A win this week. Cruz Azul's up to 9th place. We're only 7 points behind Club America. I mean, this is right where we want to be. We're hitting our stride.
Is it?
Yep, we're hitting our stride. I truly believe we're hitting our stride.
So sad.
But yeah, let's focus on Club America first. Definitely a big win for them. In all honesty, a very big win for them. Tigres, as we've mentioned, fallen off a little bit since the beginning of the season, but that doesn't mean they're any less, less. I don't even know the word I'm looking for, but they're any less of an opponent for Club America to face. That's difficult to face. So, it's a really big win for Club America. They get a clean sheet, which is really, really good. And they did put Malagon in net, which is something we did talk about. And it's
that was huge to see Fernando Ortiz make that choice and put Malagon at goal and get that clean sheet. And I will say, I felt so much more secure seeing him at goal than I have seeing Oscar Jimenez attempt to play a starter. So I think securing that victory, very important for Malagon to hold his place as that starting goalkeeper, which I think will then play an impact on the Mexican national team once he obviously establishes a rhythm and actually plays. I'm sure Diego Coca will call him up potentially as that third and replace Toño Rodriguez, but who knows? It was huge victory on that end, but very difficult for Tigres to emotionally lose that game and then come back now for the very important game against Orlando City. So I'm sure that may take a toll on the team, but they deserve it. We won. Who cares?
Yes. No, so I think it's I think it was a good change. I mean, you get a clean sheet in game 1. That's it's again, this isn't just the goalkeeper, right? I mean, it seems like even the defenders, because they only gave up 3 shots on net. They only gave up 9 shots total. Does seem like maybe the defenders also feel more confident with Malagon in net too. So
I definitely felt that way.
Yeah, definitely a good decision to put him in net, and it certainly paid off with a 2-0 win over a rival in the standings. So a big win for them, because now they're just looking at the standings, they are at 20 points. They're just 1 point behind second place now. So, a big win to keep pace with everybody else in the league. Just really good stuff from Club America this weekend.
Yeah. And elsewhere in the league, Santos won 3-2 against Viejos Xolos. A huge victory for Santos and head coach Eduardo Fentanes. It was rumored that he was conditioned and that he would potentially lose his job should they continue their losing streak. However, he disproved that. But I'm sure the victory helped him secure his place. It was an interesting game. I think Santos' defense looks absolutely terrible, and they do so week in and week out, and it really leaves Acevedo to play hero every single time, and there's only so much you can do as a goalkeeper. I mean, I don't care who you are or what kind of world-class goalkeeper you are. It really does take the help of your back line, and they're absolutely feeding him to the wolves time and time again. And you can see his reaction every time that he gets scored on. He's visibly so frustrated, yelling and telling his back line to be better. And yeah, it must be terrible when you're on the national team spotlight. You just earned a call-up, so you want to earn your place. And your own team is making you look so bad. Granted, there was 1 or 2 goals that he could have done a little bit better, but the help, But they did win. It was a great win. Fought till the end. Definitely needed. So wonderful to see those 3 points. And they say now that they're going to maintain the momentum moving forward, which would be very necessary. Now, no one expects them to perform how they did last tournament. Top 4 was a great place to be considering the squad that they had. And now, barring injuries and trades, Correa gone and gone to Tigres, it's an interesting and fair place to be mid-table for Santos, but that defense can absolutely still do better. And whether it's a 1-0 win, it's so much better than 3-2.
The defense is absolutely feeding him to the wolves. I mean, 15 shots total this last match. And it just, he's just getting like some of these are just some of these goals that he has to give up. He's just getting one-on-one situations or just getting scored on in situations where he shouldn't have to come out, or just defense is playing poorly. So it's definitely something that needs to be fixed. But for them to be in 8th place after everything that's happened over the past few months since the Apertura, this is a really good spot for them to be in. This is a really good spot for them to be in. They're scoring goals. They have given up a league leading, just behind Mazatlan, 23 goals.
Poor Mazatlan.
Poor Mazatlan. Their only win of the season, though, against Cruz Azul, because why not?
That's true. I forgot about that.
They're giving up 23 goals. They gave up 23 goals already this season, which is not good. But they've also scored 17 goals, which is good. So their offense is making up for their defensive mistakes, but I'm sure the offense would love not to have to score 3 goals to win a game. So
and I'm sure those numbers would be a lot bigger had it not been for Carlos Acevedo. So if they had Oscar Jimenez, that would have been terrible.
Yeah.
But very exciting. And Monterrey beat Pachuca, which is another great result for them, considering that Pachuca was a huge contender and still is, but bigger in the beginning of the tournament. And Rayados wants to continue establishing themselves after a turbulent-ish end to last season. I mean, last tournament during the Liguilla was just not great. They didn't perform well.
Yeah.
But they defeated Pachuca, reigning champions.
Yeah, I mean, Monterrey, as you look at it, they haven't lost a game since, they played River Plate in what I assume was a friendly in January 12th.
Yeah.
And they played Chivas in match day 1. And that was the only game they've lost all season. They haven't lost since the first game of the season. They've been on an absolute tear, and they've been the best team, Scoring-wise, defensively, they've only given up 9 goals. They seem to be clicking, and it's a big win for them because that win puts them 7 points above the next contender. Whereas if Pachuca wins that game, Monterrey are at 25 points, Pachuca's at 22 points in second place, and now it's a lot tighter. So that 7 points is a big separation now. We're 11 matches in, right? And there's 6 more matches to go. So to have a 7-point lead with 6 matches to play, that's going to be, and already beating some of your nearest competitors, that's going to be a very difficult gap for those other teams to make up. Obviously, there are still going to be tough games left on the schedule, right? They have to play Tigres next week. In 2 weeks, they play Club America, and then they play Santos Laguna, which will inevitably be a tough game. So still a few games left on the schedule that are going to be tough for them, but they're in a very good spot because they don't have to play. They only have to play 2 more out of their next 6 games. Only 2 of those are against title contenders or teams that could make a push for the title. So they're in a really good spot. And it would be, in my personal opinion, it would be probably a bit of a downfall if they did not secure the regular season Clausura, the Clausura championship before, obviously going into the playoffs. So they look very good right now. And, they look really good right now. And it looks like it's hard to beat them. And it's I don't really know. There's not many teams that are built to beat them right now.
Right. And that's where they should be. I think last season at the end was a little bit of a struggle and not reflective of their squad. So to see them back in what is the top 4 is deserving. As you said, their squad is currently built for that. And to see them that way is great. Now, granted, we only have like 30 seconds. So you can talk slightly about your team's 1-0, pathetic 1-0 win.
What do you mean pathetic 1-0
1-0.
win?
They should score more than 1.
You just said that 1-0 wins are better than 3-2 wins, though.
Yeah, they are, but they both are bad.
They got to figure out how to put the ball on target. They had 16 shots on target in this game, and they had 16 shots, and only 3 of them were on goal in this game. They got to figure out how to put the ball in the back of the net, because if they can figure that part out, they're going to be great. But they can't put the ball in the back of the net, so they're making it much harder on themselves. Like they dominated. Let's just put it that way. They dominated.
Yeah, they did.
And it took them until the 84th minute to score a goal. Like they need to figure out how to put the ball in the net. Like that's a big issue, and it's what's really holding them back right now. Granted, now they're in 9th place, right? They're on 13 points. They're in a spot where they're, considering where they were, they're in a better spot than where they were. But at the same time, they need to figure out how to put the ball in the back of the net if they want to get past the first round of the playoffs. So you're saying the team needs to score goals? Well, they're getting. It's like they're not generating the chances. They just can't find the. Be better. They just can't find the frame. They're not testing. Be better, basically. Yes, be better. Be better. Be better. Score goals and win. Better. Yes. And win. Winning is good, though. Winning's good. Winning is lovely. Winning is lovely. Clean sheets. So thank you so much for listening. We will be doing a Twitter Spaces on Thursday to preview the Major League Soccer matches on Saturday. So tune in for that on our social media channels. And as always, subscribe, stay tuned for all our exclusive information, more episodes, and anything we do on 90min.com and our social media channels, personal and company. Thanks for listening. Yes. Stay tuned. Peace. Bye.